Hi ladies, welcome to Or Pnimi. This is Sarah Tova Best. Well, what's the old normal and what's the new normal when it comes to achievement? Because we're approaching Chav Cheshvan, the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, we really can look into a famous story, which I'll mention very briefly, that all of us know. A story which shows a revolution in the new normal. A revolution created by, we can say, the Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe Rashab working together to create a new normal in achievement. What's the story? What's the new normal? What's the revolution? Are you part of it? Last question first. Are you part of it? Yes. What's the new normal? Let's see. So we all know that when the Rebbe Rashab was 4 or 5 years old, it was his birthday, Parshas Vayera, and he went to his Zayda, his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, and he began to cry, and he said, why did Hashem appear to Avram Avinu and not to us? And he cried. And the answer is an amazing answer. First of all, what's the whole interaction about? Who is it? The Rebbe Rashab begins the triumvirate, the three-legged stool of Miyad, of the push to bring Mashiach down here in this world. This is it. Including you and me and all of our achievements. So remember, that final push, when Mashiach now comes down into the world this way, that includes every piece of your accomplishment, your achievement. Your achievements are a huge, vital part of it. So therefore, we understand when this whole process begins, we're talking about the year 1865, 1864, 65, 66. When this begins to happen, and your part with your talents and abilities are a major piece of it, there needs to be a revolution in your and my ability to achieve, confidence to achieve, understanding of what achievement is all about. And so back to the story. The Rebbe Rashab goes in, begins to cry. From that we understand that what he's asking for is that Jews should be able to perceive godliness as much as Avram Avinu was able to. Not only should be able to, should want to the point of tears. What does it mean to perceive godliness? Besides everything, I'm not the expert on perceiving godliness, but when it comes to that topic that I said, your achievements, my achievements, our talents, our abilities, where does it all fit in? We want to see it in that godly perspective. We don't want to see it separate as something separate. Well, there's God and his geula, have a nice time, and then there's me and my talent. Of course, we want to see it as one composite. It's an extension. My talent is an outgrowth of God and his geula, the Rebbe and his geula plans. And that requires that I have a mind shift, a mindset shift. So the Tzemach Tzedek answered the Rebbe Rashab. Remember, the Rebbe Rashab is a little boy and the Tzemach Tzedek is his grandfather. And here's the revolution. The Tzemach Tzedek said, when a tzaddik of 99 years old, and some say a tzaddik gomer, a complete tzaddik at the age of 99, meaning he's reached the top, he's reached the ceiling, he made it. When he gets to that point, and he recognizes that he starts now from square one, then God will appear to him, just like he did to Avram Avinu. Then he will begin to have a perspective of what it's all about from the highest, most divine perspective, which is the most holistic perspective, which then empowers him to do even more from a deeper place, greater abilities, and it becomes cyclical. Again, here we're focusing on what does this story have to do with my talent? So what is the Tzemach Tzedek saying? It seems that he's saying the following. The nature of life is the following. When you reach a ceiling, you're at the top of your game. I'm the best bowler. I spent 30 years in bowling alleys, and I spent 30 years learning to play the cello, and I got there, and I'm now in the New York Philharmonic. I got it. I reached the top. We all read recently that there was a story from a certain very wealthy, successful individual who said, when you reach the top, this is what it's like, and yet it's still lacking. But the nature is, when you reach the top, you're at the top of your game, whether it's on a daily basis, that you had a plan to get all the laundry done, and I did it! Or you had a plan to write that article, I did it! Or you had a plan to learn the cello, to get into the New York Philharmonic, to become the solo ballet dancer. Whatever it is, when you reach the ceiling, the nature is to go into what Chassidus calls yesh. Yesh means nothing evil, just I have a sense of self. I feel like I worked hard and I accomplished. I'm pretty proud of myself. And you can find a million courses out in the world teaching you how to be proud of your accomplishments. Be proud of yourself. You learned to play the cello. You were accepted to the New York Philharmonic. You're now in the Royal Ballet. You now got the laundry done. You wrote that article. You decorated that cake. Be proud of yourself. That's what the world teaches us. The Rebbe Rashab said, time for a revolution. Don't be proud of self. That's just going to deteriorate and sour. Be proud of God, who has taken such a simple, regular person like you and made him into what he is, made her into what she is. Don't be proud of self. Be proud of God. Be proud of the divine self. Open up your perspective. Why? What's wrong with me being proud of myself? And the answer is, as we go into Mashiach times, when the truth will be so fully revealed, being proud of myself because I made it to the New York Philharmonic will actually drag me down and keep sabotaging my ability to become whom I want to become. It says the whole occupation of the world will be nothing other than to know God. Why? Self-actualization will actually come through a holistic knowing of God. So what's going to happen is, if I come to the point where I'm at the top of my game and now I'm proud of myself because I did it, then I'm going to keep falling back down to the bottom and climbing up again and falling back down, and I'm never going to get out of the pit. I'm just going to be chasing my own tail and going in a circle, which is not what I want to do. I want to move upward and forward. So the Rebbe Rashab went to the Tzemach Tzedek, and they each represent a different era in history. The Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, working on Pnimius, enabling us to become deeply, intrinsically deep servants of God, human beings. And the Rebbe Rashab, the previous Rebbe, and the Rebbe, bringing all that down into an actuality. Two different things, the head and the foot. So from two different generations, two different energies, they collude, they collaborate to create a revolution in what? In this, that when I reach the ceiling of my accomplishment, either daily, weekly, monthly, or my life's goal, or top of my profession, or top of my game, when I reach the ceiling, the impossible is going to be able to happen. Instead of me going into yesh, I'm proud of myself, I will be able to go into bittul. I'm proud of the Rebbe, who has taken a person like me and built me in this way. I'm proud of God. Proud is not the right word, but rather than celebrating myself, when I get to the top of my game, it can bring me into a mode of celebrating God, celebrating the Rebbe and the brachas that he's giving me, not celebrating myself. That's the revolution. Because the nature of the animal soul will always take us into self. And therefore we understand it takes something, it takes an encounter such as this, and a well thought out, most probably, revolution by all the Chabad Rebbeim to create this in us. And it comes through that simple, seemingly simple story of the Rebbe Rashab crying as a 4 or 5-year-old saying, why does Hashem not appear to us like he did to Avram Avinu? And the Tzemach Tzedek saying he can and he needs to. You need to be able to perceive the global divine perspective. We've got to get out of self, guys, because we're going nowhere fast if we stay in self. But to do that, and no buts, and to do that, says the Tzemach Tzedek, we have to install a little app at the top of the game. When you get to the ceiling, the app goes into effect, and instead of pushing us into, I'm proud of myself, I celebrate myself, my Hollywood self. Have you ever seen the people in Hollywood? When they get to the top, what does it look like? Not very pretty at all. Not very pretty, because they're celebrating self. A normal, natural thing to do. We now have the ability to celebrate God. Celebrate the Rebbe who is giving us those brachas when we get to the top. And one last point is, why? Why us now? Why 1865, beginning this era? Boom, why for us? And why is the Rebbe telling us this story every year and bringing it out? And we can say, most probably, because there has never been a generation in history in which regular old people like us have been empowered to become giants, relative giants. You know the kid, Mendy, remember he used to go to yeshiva and you would help with lunch and he never wanted to eat his macaroni and you would have to, Mendy, eat your macaroni. And the kid was a nudnik. And now he's the head shliach of whatever, Timbuktu, the rabbi. The whole rabbi is 21 years old. He still isn't eating his macaroni. His wife probably still says, Mendy, eat your macaroni. How did he become a giant? How did we become giants? How are we becoming giants? In a time when we're being catapulted up to the top of our game through the Rebbe's brachas, by God Almighty, by the Rebbe sending us there, and God Almighty infusing us with superhuman kaiches. It's incredible. The world needs us to do it. And at the same time, we need, when we get to the top, when we get to that level of the tzaddik of 99 years old, to realize, now we erst begin to realize, to do a bris milah, to realize that it's time to unblock our relationship between us and God, to start from the beginning, to have that sense of simple humility. And surely with all of that, we will find ourselves, with all of our talents, filling the world with light in the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, in the way that the Rebbe Rashab wants, Tzemach Tzedek wants, God himself wants, and surely it will be now. Thanks so much.